So while the rest of the country was shutting down and quarantining at home, we were asking our 2,500 Gojo team members to spring into action, work around the clock, and come in. It was a really strange time. I was driving down to Akron every day, and it felt like an apocalypse. There was no one on the highway. It was dark everywhere. It was really eerie. We had to make the decision during those early days to shut off all of our end user markets except for the most critical ones for human health and thriving. So we did not ship to retail. And you can imagine some of those companies did not take that real well at the time. We didn't ship to places that people weren't, and that seems obvious, but a lot of customers wanted product even though they had no one in their buildings just for security. And so it was a lot of tough conversations. In order to do that, we basically had to go on allocation, so we had to tell people what they were allowed to buy. Our system, within a couple days of us realizing we were in pandemic, had 3 years of back orders in it. 3 years of back orders in SAP. SAP does not like things like that, and it actually just stopped working. It's a much longer and more painful story and much more boring, but the upshot of it is SAP broke, and so we literally ran allocation throughout the pandemic until April of 2021 in Excel, in Microsoft Excel. And we had teams who would do the work overnight, so they would figure out what we were making, look at all the needs across the whole country and around the world, including calls we were getting from health systems, figure out exactly what we had to make, because every refill has to fit the dispenser it's going into. It's not simple. And then during the day, that product would get actually allocated out to the customers and shipped. So we told them what they could order, and then they'd ordered it, and we canceled anything that wasn't on the list. Every single person on our team gave it their all. I was in a plant on a Saturday morning early in the pandemic serving lunch before we went to box lunches. And one of our supervisors, someone told me one of our supervisors was working her 21st day straight. And I walked over to talk to her. I think Zach might have even been there with me. And I said, how are you doing this? I mean, 21 days straight working in these in crazy conditions in the plant. And she said, nobody else can do it. Like, it was like, of course I'm here, you know? There were plenty of problems to deal with. I think we showed up with curiosity, creativity, and collaboration. We never, ever had enough information, ever, to make a decision we felt 100% confident about, ever. There wasn't a day where I said, oh, good, we got the last piece of data, and now we can make the decision. But we talked about it. We talked about it for as long as we could. We got as much input as we could, and then we just made the call, knowing that if we learned something new, we would change our minds, and there was going to be no shame in that. In fact, the only shame was going to be in sticking with a bad decision. All in all, it was $400 million of investment in just over a year. We pulled forward 10 years of CapEx, which was totally unprecedented in the company's history, and it ended up expanding our capacity by up to 10x. So on that ES product I described to you, that new dispenser, a 10x expansion in our capacity. I promised at the beginning that I would tell that story, but I don't think the big headline is that story. It's not really what we did or even how we did it. I think it's the so what. So what can we learn from that time? It seems logical that before trying to apply lessons to the future, we do well to make some predictions about the future. But you can ask my team. I'm terrible at that, apparently. We haven't had a budget that made any sense for 3 years. So I'm not going to try to tell you what the future is going to be like and then prescribe something. Instead, I'll tell you that what we've learned over the last couple of years is about how you approach the world, a world that is unpredictable.